Employment lawyer, HR consultant, and creator of the HR Insider. On this channel, I talk about real legal cases that demonstrate how the law might apply to your circumstances. Today's case is a wild one. Imagine a work environment so toxic that an employee felt forced to walk away immediately. Let's talk about it. The content shared on this channel is for informational purposes only and is not a substitute for professional legal advice. Always consult a qualified attorney or HR professional for specific guidance tailored to your needs. Don't forget to like and subscribe. This story starts with Beth Ann Faragher, who grew a passion for swimming and being near the water at a very young age. She worked as a lifeguard for the city of Boca Raton in Florida, and she alleged that her immediate supervisors, two men, Bill Terry and David Silverman, created a very sexually charged atmosphere by repeatedly subjecting Beth Ann and other female lifeguards to uninvited and offensive touching. They also made highly offensive comments. She said that they were constantly talking about women in offensive terms. One supervisor, she said during her case, frequently told lifeguards things like, date me or clean the toilets. And she said by when he said that, he was implying that women in the workplace should be subservient to men. She said both supervisors touched her, made aggressive sexual advances towards her, and not just her, the other female lifeguards as well. She said one of them was always making sexually explicit jokes. She said the jokes weren't even funny, they were just lewd and outright disgusting. As I was reading through the case, I couldn't help but picture the type of environment that they are in. We have all been to the beach, right? And you know how relaxed the environment is. The sun is out, and it's very easy to forget in that environment that this is a place of business. People become casual and overly relaxed. And the comments that were being made at the work to Beth Ann were not just an occasional comment. They were explicit jokes, sexual in nature, that were made on a daily basis. She said sometimes they were made even hourly. And she said that the work environment was just so inappropriate and it made her very uncomfortable that she had a difficult time even enjoying her job, enjoying her surroundings, enjoying the water and being at the beach, which was something that she was very passionate about. And so it became so overbearing that Beth Ann, she didn't even report what she was experiencing to human resources. She just left. So, in this case, it went all the way to the Supreme Court, and they decided that the supervisor's conduct against Beth Ann and the other lifeguards was, in fact, discriminatory, it was harassment, and it was an abusive environment. So, even though Beth Ann left, an important takeaway from this case is that sometimes you find yourself in an environment you didn't report what you were experiencing to anyone. And that's what happened with Beth Ann, right? She left. She said, this is hostile. It's uncomfortable. I'm out of here. But she knew her rights. She filed a complaint with the EEOC. She pursued this legally. And I would encourage you to do the same, even if you don't report it to HR because you feel like you can't because of the type of environment that is there in the organization where you're working. Please take the time to find out if you can, in fact, file a case. It's a simple call to the EEOC, sharing with them what you have experienced rather than just walking away, because this case actually changed the course for all employers. It made them aware that you are responsible for your work environment. The city of Boca Raton said that it wasn't fair that they would be held responsible because they never knew, because Beth Ann never reported it to HR. But the Supreme Court said no, you have a duty to make sure that your work environment is comfortable, is free of harassment, and free of discrimination. And the city of Boca Raton was held liable for harassment of both of those supervisors. But the intent of the case was to demonstrate who was actually responsible for the work environment. Was it the employee's responsibility to report the claim to human resources, or was it the employer's responsibility to be proactive and make sure that that environment was free of harassment? The Supreme Court said no, it's the employer's responsibility. So even though the lifeguards did not receive monetary compensation as a part of the ruling, the case, which focused on employer responsibility for hostile work environment and harassment, it really cemented that duty that an employer has. I talk a lot on this channel about the importance of documentation. This is a case that really drives home that point because it shows how inappropriate comments that are made to either undermine someone, prevent people from working in a collaborative environment, exclude, or sabotage the work of your coworkers can cross the line from workplace drama, something that most of us, I think, are familiar with or have experienced, that routine drama that is just a part of the workplace, into a legally recognized hostile work environment. Now, to meet the legal definition of a hostile work environment, the person who is making the allegation has to be targeted based on a legally protected characteristic. And these protected characteristics include race, gender, religion, disability. There are others, but the idea is that if you are a part of a community that has a legally protected characteristic, then you have met one of the conditions that would create a hostile work environment. In this case, we're talking about women who were lifeguards, so their relevant protected characteristic would be gender. The definition of a hostile environment also requires, in addition to being a member of a protected characteristic, it also requires that the conduct is offensive. And it has to be either offensive and severe or offensive and pervasive. So, what does that mean? Incidents that are, you know, isolated, they're not going to be viewed by the court as enough to create a hostile environment. Unless it's a severe physical threat, something like that could be viewed as thing that rises to the level of a hostile environment. The behavior has to make it difficult for the employee to perform their job. So, in this case, the comments were done on an almost incessant basis, daily. I think at one point, Beth Ann said, as I read through the case, this was hourly that they were making these comments to them. I don't think there was a lot of lifeguarding going on. They were too busy going after these women. But um, anyway, this is really a case where think you have to think through, how often is this happening to me? How often are these comments taking place? And this is where your documentation of what you're experiencing really becomes important. Sometimes things at work can make you feel very uncomfortable. People can rub you the wrong way. You don't know what it is about them, but something feels ick. It just doesn't feel right. Let's talk about what a hostile environment is not and some of the common misconceptions, because I think when you know what it is not, it can help you understand what is the best move based on what circumstances you're facing. So, if a boss is mean to you or if a boss is rude, that's not a hostile environment. People can be equally mean to everyone who reports to them. They can be equally rude to everyone who reports to them. The truth is, bad management isn't illegal unless it involves harassment that is tied to a protected class, as we've just reviewed what those protected characteristics are. Those are the qualifiers that you are going to look for to determine if this is just about someone being mean or someone who is targeting a certain group of people. Micromanaging can be something that is experienced by a lot of people where they feel like their supervisor is overly concerned about every little thing that they do. And that can be frustrating, but it's not harassment because if it's not tied to someone, for example, who is in a protected class, like what we went through, we talked about, um, then it's just someone who is micromanaging the work of their directs. If you are a woman and a man is micromanaging your work, Is it tied to your performance? Is it tied to, because gender is a protected class, right? So a woman who is dealing with frustrating micromanagement issues, who raises the concern about harassment, you have to look at and consider, what is that woman's performance like? Does the manager have a reason to question and to be concerned about what the woman who reports to him is doing? So these are things that all come into play. It's not just about, your supervisor micromanaging and being overly interested in your work. There has to be something else that links it to a hostile environment. A conflict in the workplace. I can assure you that these are the types of things that you do not want to raise. General disagreements just do not meet the threshold for hostile work environment. People disagree all the time. It's just a part of life. It's better to move on with things, understand that you can agree to disagree. I wouldn't go talking to your supervisor and talking to HR about that. I would just try to move forward and understand that you're not going to agree with everyone in the workplace all the time. That being said, it's also important to remember that when you are dealing with someone at work, people who are looking to sabotage, if they have a toxic personality, which is what we're talking about today, those people can try to preempt a complaint that you might make against them by complaining about you. This is an old trick. I've seen it so many times in HR, where the person who is really being the aggressor, instead of being afraid of being held accountable for being the aggressor, they will go to HR, go to their supervisor and say, "Oh, this person is making me feel uncomfortable and sabotaging me," and those types of things. So you just want to be mindful of who you are dealing with and know how to proceed. Even if they do something like that, I still wouldn't go to the supervisor or HR and complain. What I would do is just document what has happened so that if it's brought to your attention, you can address it. But you don't want to get into this petty tit for tat, uh, debate in the workplace with a toxic person. It just doesn't serve you well. The case we reviewed today is an excellent example of what creates a hostile environment. I want to share two more with you because I think it's important. If you are experiencing jokes about your religion in the workplace, religion is a protected characteristic. I would document the number of times those comments have been made. I would ask the person who is making those comments to stop. And if they continue, then this would create a hostile environment. Why? Because you've got the protected characteristic of religion and you've got offensive jokes that are repeatedly being made despite a request for them to stop. The second scenario I want to share with you is when a coworker posts racially offensive content in shared workspaces. This could be in their office, in a break room, on their cubicle wall, but anything that makes it difficult for employees of that race to feel safe or comfortable at work, that could also qualify as hostile environment because race is also a protected characteristic. There are 5 strategies I've seen people use that have successfully worked when they are dealing with jealous coworkers. 5 is to stay professional, okay? This can be one of the hardest things to do. You want to stoop to their level, but if you do, you just become a party to what they are doing. Keep your interactions polite, be professional, and speak and be confident because you may be confronted with an issue where you need to demonstrate to HR or to your supervisor what is happening. Okay. And if you are behaving irrationally, emotionally, and you're not able to logically talk about what is happening, you are going to become a party to the conflict. What you want to try and demonstrate by staying professional and conducting yourself with confidence is As an observer, this is what I'm seeing. This is what's happening. And you are showing that there's validity to it because you just want to demonstrate what's happening so that it can be resolved, not that you've got a personal petty interest in this person that you have a conflict with. Okay, even if the conflict is not your fault, this is something that will speak volumes to an HR department if you're dealing with a good HR department, one that you feel like you can trust, right? We have to vet our HR departments because we understand that sometimes they are not aligned with trying to make sure the work environment is comfortable. Sometimes they are misaligned. And if you're dealing with a misaligned HR department, this may not work, right? Because they may not have the interest of trying to make sure the work environment is comfortable and safe for everyone. But if you have that kind of HR department, if you approach them and you are overly emotional and you cannot articulate yourself and you cannot share what is happening, or if you start crying, this is one that as I said, emotionally, try to keep yourself level headed and just explain what is happening. Number four is embracing healthy boundaries. This one is so important. I see people in the workplace who they want to be friends, they want to engage in conversation with people, with everyone. They want to be able to have, just a light-hearted, fun dialogue with someone without understanding the dynamics of how that relationship or that conversation could impact them in the workplace. And this type of dynamic, just there's no place for it at work. Can you have friends at work? Absolutely. Is everyone your friend at work? No, they are not. Which means you cannot be friends with a viper, someone who has already demonstrated to you who they are. A walking lie on 2 feet is someone that you need to have healthy boundaries with. This means that you don't want to overshare your personal and professional successes with them. You want to avoid them if they are gossiping and just limit non-essential interactions with them. You don't have to talk with them, don't. When you do have to talk with them, do, but you keep it high level. And if they want to try to sabotage your work, just document those things that are happening, and you may need to escalate it, but you definitely don't want to approach a friendship with someone that you already know is questionable in terms of how they behave at work. Number three, don't create drama. Don't add to the drama. Don't vent about them to other coworkers because it can make things worse. And this is especially true if you are new to an organization. You don't know who all the parties are. And when it comes down to it, you and your coworkers both have to feed your families. You both have bills you have to pay. And so you just want to be very careful about complaining and venting about a toxic coworker to other people. And if they spread rumors about you, ignore them or correct misinformation calmly in a non-emotional way. Stay focused on what you're there to do rather than retaliating against them. Again, don't allow them to draw you in to their petty tactics. I can promise you that good work speaks for itself. Focus on delivering high quality work, being a good performer, because this is what is going to allow your value to shine through. Letting your achievements and your teamwork, the allies that you have, being well respected, it is going to make it harder for jealousy driven people to take hold of you and your circumstances. These people want to draw you out. Why do they want to draw you out? Because they want to make you look bad. They're jealous of you. If they can draw you out and get you to engage with them on pettiness because they know that's all they've got, it makes you look like the person who's also petty, and it diminishes all the good work you're doing. So stay above it, stay out of it, don't engage, allow your work to speak for itself. The number one thing you can do when you are dealing with a jealous coworker is know when to involve HR or consult with authorities outside of your organization. As I read through this case, I was so impressed with Beth Ann Faragher. This girl was 19 years old when she sued the city of Boca Raton. She did not have a lot of work experience or knowledge about things that were happening in the workplace. And a lot of what she described really was, in some ways, assault. The touching, the lewd comments, the sexual explicit jokes. I can't imagine the courage it took. She didn't involve HR, but she did consult with outside authorities. And if you can't involve HR, you still have outside authorities as an option. And I would just encourage you to know when to do that. Again, if it's petty, if it's a workplace conflict that is about a disagreement, we talked about those things. You don't want to engage HR because you want to avoid anything that makes you look like a party to the conflict. You want to look like someone who is outside of the conflict and that you are observing it and you're making mention of what's happening so that they can take the appropriate action. If jealousy crosses the line into bullying, discrimination, into harassment like it did with Beth Ann, you need to take action. The first thing, as I said, documenting what's happening with dates and details and addressing those concerns professionally is going to go a long way in getting the outcome that you want. Always remember that jealousy is not your issue. It's their issue. Don't let their insecurity throw you off track and allow your light to be dimmed. Stay focused, set boundaries, and maintain the professionalism that it takes for you to rise above the circumstances you are confronted with. The bottom line is your jealous coworker who is just being rude probably is not illegal. The behavior has to meet the legal standard of harassment and also be tied to a protected characteristic. Knowing the difference will help you take the right steps. Have you ever dealt with a toxic coworker? Share your thoughts in the comments. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.